and you tune the equal error rate, but basically you always have to choose how much you have of those errors. If you improve one, then you make the other worse. And now the equal error rate is that level where the two errors are equal, so the two false positives and false negatives. It's just one practical characterization of an error. In practical applications, you probably would tune the system to some other value, but at least this makes systems comparable. The biggest problem with that is that it depends on the attacker. So we can always make a more powerful attacker, including more information, having a larger machine learning model or something. Just a better model, and that will extract more information. So that's the main problem of that. So it's not a theoretically valid approach, it's a practical approach. Now I have here the definition of the theoretical approach, but I think I can explain it in heuristic terms quite easily. Suppose you start with 1 million people, so that the speaker is known to be one of those 1 million people. And now, if there's an information leak, suppose that with this new information, we can narrow down the identity to 500,000 people. So then we have used the information to reduce the number of possible people who could be this person we are trying to identify. And if it's half, that's 1 bit of information. So 1 bit is always like halving the population to half. So the number of bits is actually then the measure. So how many bits of private information we see. And that always connects to how much we can narrow down the population. So if you narrow down from 256 people to 1, that will be 8 bits of information. If it's 512, then it's 9 bits of information. So 512 to 1 bit, or 1 person, then it's 9 bits of information, and so on. In my informal experiments, I have, for example, some evidence that the pitch information of speech, so just looking at individual frames of speech and the pitch information, that will be 5 bits of information. So from 32 people, you can narrow it down to 1 on average. And that additional average is important. That sometimes, let's say, me and my brother, we have similar voices, similar pitch. So us two, you cannot narrow down with 5 bits of pitch information. But if you take 5, so the 2 random people, then most likely you can narrow it down to 1 person, not of course random 2 people. So these are always average values, or always. That's again goes back to the categorical things or average things. So we can also measure in the same way we can measure the worst case. We can say that the worst case is that out of 32 people, 1 person is identified. But usually the average is much less bad. So just out of, let's say, 10 people, we can usually identify a single person. So the average bit rate would then be something like 3 and 3.5 bits, whereas the worst case is then at 5 bits. So the worst case and average are competing measures. And this is actually the philosophical discussion we had with Jolly. Which one is the right one? There is no right one. We have to, if we improve the worst case, we will increase the average. And someone has to make a choice which one to measure. Or is it like a weighted sum of these two that come over there? have some guarantees for the, so let's say that the worst case cannot exceed some value, and within those boundaries, we optimize the average exposure. That could be one approach. So those are questions that engineers have to choose, and if they do it alone, they are quite alone. So it would be nice to have a wider discussion about that. What is the right measure? But on this kind of when you have only numbers now here, it's very hard to get a sense of what it means in practice. So you have to embed that in a practical example and practical consequences to see what balance makes sense. And within, so this is now that's the one measure of privacy. There are many properties we can also look at. But before looking at that, we need to define a few words that we can make a discussion here. So biometric reference refers to that if I want to, so if I have a speech sample which I don't know who is speaking there, I want to know whether it's Jolly or not. I need to have a comparison. I need to have an example, a reference of Jolly. I can compare that. Is this now the same as this test sample? So we always need a biometric reference, which is the comparison where we, with the use of which we get to know whether this sample is Jolly or not. But that biometric reference does not have to be an audio file. It can be something else. So we can somehow extract the relevant information, perhaps have some kind of categories from here, and kind of store 5 bits of information of opinions and 5 bits of information of health status until we find a unique identity. And that could be then the biometric reference. But this interesting thing is that, so the reference itself should not be identifiable. So we shouldn't be able to go backwards. So basically it's like a key, like a password. If we have Jolly's password, then we can verify that it is him. But without the password, we don't know whose password this is. So that's the unlinkability aspect of it. Okay, that's irreversibility. Now I mixed up these two things. So unlinkability is that when we have two passwords, from Jolly, my own and Jolly's passwords, we cannot know whether they are the same person's passwords or not. That's unlinkability. And then the irreversibility would be that we cannot know whether this password is Jolly's. Renewability. This is actually important, more important to realize first that if I lose my password, so if I lose my password to my phone, all the data is gone. But if it's a biometric thing, if it's based on my voice, I can create a new password from my voice, which opens the phone, even though I lost the original password. So that is in theory possible. So if you use your voice as the reference, so you create the password from your voice. You can say different things, for example. One day you create a password by saying that I am Tom Ekström, and then that creates the password, and some other day you say that today is a sunny day. So there are different sentences, so that basically the passwords created from those sentences will be different, but they still express my identity. So that is technically possible to some extent. or at least we want that to be possible, because then it doesn't matter if we lose that password to our information. Then you go to the objective utility of a system. Now we need to think about what is the purpose of the system. So this performance in the trusted downstream task. So for example, emotion recognition. How effective is the system in doing emotion recognition? The privacy protection could decrease the performance. We don't want that. But it certainly can, especially if you have a bottleneck involved where we try to reduce accuracy. Definitely at some point the performance will reduce, so you need to measure that. And there we use just what we always used. So there's nothing new here for the engineers. That's what we've always done. But then the subjective utility. So that is perhaps not so common for many engineers to do that. Or in some areas of speech we do that. For example, in speech transmission, the community gold standard is to always have subjective tests. So when we have a new codec, so a new model, we create audio files which have been compressed with these methods and opened. And then we have people come into the lab and they hear those sounds and give rating. How good was the output? What did this sound as like the original? So basically user testing, we can do it with any system. With health applications, then perhaps you have a doctor who rates how accurate was this output, or we have a manually labeled data where we compare, is the computer equally accurate as a doctor to do the labeling. But it's also about how natural does it feel to use. So with the speech interface, does it feel comfortable to use? Or if this password using problem was it's not comfortable to use if kind of everything disappears when you lose the password. So that's not a very usable system. And then subjective privacy. That is something which is rather new. Some experiments are made in this field, but I think my team has done lots of new stuff that no one else has done. So of course, what others have done is like, for example, if you anonymize a speech signal, so you try to change the speaker identity, and then you listen to the output and ask the users, does this sound like this person or not? So how far has the identity moved from the original identity? Or if you have emotions or health things, can you hear that this person has a flu or not? Or can you hear that this person is angry? So that would be the kind of measuring how much of the private information has leaked through. So that is what other people have done. We have also thought about how private does this system feel. So that's the Greg example. That if you have a Alexa in the corner, does this feel now private? And I use Greg as an example just to highlight what you actually should feel like. The people don't think about Greg usually, so I think their perception of the privacy can be quite different from what it actually is. And that this actually highlights the thing that you probably know that some people don't care. Whatever. I don't have anything to lose. That's of course an illusion, but some people feel that way, and other people are paranoid. It's also not true. So both extremes are incorrect, also objectively incorrect, but the experience is not incorrect, and that's a true experience, what they feel. And the question is, how do we mitigate such things? So the objective things, we are engineers, we can fix those. Or we're supposed to, that's what we've always done, fix numbers. But how do we fix users who feel threatened by something which is safe? So that's a question for you to think about. Any ideas? How do we make users feel safe? And also, is that the right target? Are we supposed to make them feel safe? There's some question over there. There's a microphone over there. The user. So that, yeah. So, what are we supposed to make them feel? And how do we do that? Yes.
Probably secure and like it sounds wrong. Make them feel safe.
Yeah, yes, that's a good suggestion. I was trying to make that obvious. So we should not make them feel absolutely safe. How should we make them feel?
We can educate them like some of the information that
Yes.
by giving some advertisement. Or
Yes.
something.
Education is one thing. Yes. Is that a good way? No, I think, let's say, it's one thing which we need to do. Is it the only thing? Is it the best way? Or are there other ways, better ways?
It should be of some practical use to them, such that it should solve a problem in their life. Products.
Mm-hmm. Is it the products should solve something? Yes. And if it's what? So, in relation to subjective privacy, so they should then, so to solve that subjective privacy issue, I'm almost connecting the dots. So can you continue?
So, yeah, the question is how do we make them feel about it? So, they should feel that, okay, I need this in my life, this product.
Okay, so that's the marketing side of it. Facebook wants you to use Facebook, yes, so that they get more sales. So that's the marketing side, yes. That's a valid approach from them, but is that ethical? There's something that it's not ethical, yes, okay. There are arguments, there are good arguments why it's not ethical, yes. But so how should we make them feel?
If it is made like normalize usage, like nowadays everybody uses the Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So if like majority of the people uses, then they think it is safer.
Yeah, so that's the consequence. So if lots of people use it, then it starts to feel. So if lots of people jump off the cliff, it starts to feel like a good an option.
I think they should have a state reputation.
Users should have a say, like they have some level of decision-making capacity. They need to have a say at how their data is used.
Yes. So control.
Is control.
Control is one aspect. So you need to have control over. And that control. I have examples of it later. So control includes the experience of privacy. So it feels like it's more, even if nothing changes, when you have control, it feels better, which is interesting. And, so nothing has changed. What else? So now we have transparency, yes. So a button yes and no doesn't tell us anything, or the consent button gives us control, but it doesn't really improve anything because it's not transparent. So we need to communicate transparently the actual level of privacy, or what you are actually consenting to. Some comments back there.
Any malpractice, then there will be an alert message or any will be received
Yes.
to the user, so that the user will be alert.
Yes.
That we can assure.
Yes. So interestingly, kind of it makes you feel more secure
Yes.
when you hear about threats. So you become more aware of, or at least to some extent. At the climbing gym where I used to go climbing, indoor climbing, they used to have this sign where so it's a sign that 35 days without any accidents. And I think that's good. It makes you realize that there are accidents. Now, more than a month is pretty good. But it's still a warning that I have to take things carefully. So honesty is quite good, and that actually then changes behavior. And that's what we actually want here in privacy. We want to change behavior such that it's the correct level of, correct usage of the device, such that we don't. And that actually is a form of education then. We are educating them through this kind of indirect methods. So that is my philosophy of.
There must be an acknowledgement. There must be an
Acknowledgement
from the intended receiver to the transmitter. Please stipulate time.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't receive the token or acknowledgement, then he can stop the communication.
Yeah. So
double authentication, like when we are entering, the Google has, like when we are entering password, it will send a message to the mobile saying
yes.
Somebody is trying to access your account. Is that you? If you, then press 56 something.
Yes. But that's also feedback. So that's communication about the actual privacy level. So it's a very subtle way of demonstrating that yes, no one else has actually accessed because this is the first time I received that message, or it was just connected to this event when I logged in with a new device. So that is a good way of it's timely consent. Well, it's not consent because it happens afterwards, but you feel like you have control because you get knowledge and you are educated. So those are nice effects. So this is connected to psychological effects. So this is a field which I have tried to get in contact with. I still don't know anyone who is actually doing psychology which is connected with privacy. But I know that in psychology there is a concept of I forget the concept name, but so yeah, it will come back to me soon. But anyway, people do feel like they have ownership of their information. So that's a feeling we have. And then I think what was interesting for me in yesterday's discussions about the morals is the relationship between feelings and logic. So in moral arguments, we are trying to make logic arguments about feelings we have about right and wrong, which is somehow, to me, difficult. But anyway, people do feel ownership of information, and when that sense of ownership is broken or violated, it's a psychological discomfort. So users can feel insulted if their private information is misused, misrepresented. Misrepresentation now, for example, if what would be a good example of misrepresentation? I have a vague notion of what that can be. But for example, now if a group of people, let's say ethnic minority, if I go and say that this group is like this, it might not reflect how they feel about themselves, and that is a violation, in a broad sense, a violation of their privacy. Like they have ownership of their identity. So that's basically this when we start to use, for example, in cultural settings, if I would start to do Indian music, that would probably kind of not reflect how Indian music actually is. So it will kind of conflict with what you think is Indian music. Then that someone could feel insulted about that. Just that's a first example that came to mind. I don't know if you actually would be insulted or honored. Is it appropriation? Yes, cultural appropriation is the word I was searching for. So that is one sort of misrepresentation. And then when private information is revealed to the public, or we fear about that. We already talked a bit about the anthropomorphization, but it's not like human, and the capabilities are beyond human, or they have other capabilities than humans have. They can have different abilities. But the outcome here is basically that it's the question of user interface design. So when we design the user interface, that's where the choices are. How we can choose how we design the user interface such that it better communicates whatever we want to communicate. So then it becomes the question of what do we want it to communicate. So the design community can go and do that communication, but then it's a more community-wide discussion of how they should behave. And I talked about co-design on Monday. I think that is the, at least to my mind, the best, or it's not optimal, but the best I know. So the best design methods to come at the good behavior. And now coming back to the kind of what it should not exaggerate privacy, or it should not exaggerate trustworthiness, or other ethical properties, because that's deception, and that's known as a dark design pattern. So it's an unethical design, or it's known as a dark design pattern. So it's basically just unethical design choices. So, for example, gambling apps use that always. They try to hook the users to go there again and again. Facebook does that, the infinite scroll, so that you can just go further and further down. There is no like nudge to make you stop. That is a hook which they have on you to keep scrolling, and you can lose hours through that. And that's a design choice that they have made. They are trying to hook you. ethics of that have been well known for a long time already. It's not ethical, but no one stops them. So within the confines of privacy, it should then can communicate objective privacy level accurately. Now there was, I think, good examples here was the notifications, for example. When there is something happening, you should notify of that. You should have control, and you should also have access to the information. And so both current level changes to that level, and the configurations have to be all transparent for it to be ethical, in my opinion. A few words about laws in this area. Of course, the GDPR, so the European Union General Data Protection Regulation, that was a very big step forward. First big comprehensive data privacy law in the world. It's not perfect, but it's a big step forward. The California Consumer Privacy Act came quite soon after that. It's to a large part like a copy of that, of the GDPR. So there are some things which are different, yes. So some things have actually been improved. Like, of course, when you are first, it's not going to be perfect, and the later ones will improve. But still, both are like the most prominent and biggest laws. And even if they apply only now within the EU or within California, all the big companies have to take that into account in their operations. So now for the very big companies like Google, they still can do it. They can apply GDPR within the EU, and outside they can ignore it. That is possible. But for many smaller companies, it's too much effort to do region-wise different policies. So it's just easier to always use the strongest protections. So those laws have a global effect, even though they are also only regional laws. And that's a very important step forward. So my personal biggest criticism to these laws are that they are based, they frequently use this concept of unique identifiability. So it means that someone is actually basically with 100% certainty identified that this is Tom Ekström. I'm certain about it. But nothing ever is certain. And kind of when we look at some speaker identification methods, we always basically get that we have that false positive rate and false negative rate. We always have errors. So I don't know really how to apply the law because we have a confidence interval. Are we always at the danger of unique identifiability so that nothing is possible? Or do we always have a possibility of confusion so that we can do whatever? Anything would be possible. I haven't gotten a straight answer from any lawyer to this. But I think that's like a bigger problem that in the legal frameworks we want to find the murderer, and then we say that this guy is the murderer and he goes to jail. There is no confidence intervals involved. There's like it has to, at least in the US legal framework, they talk about this reasonable, beyond reasonable doubt. So that is then some percentage. So there is some percentage remaining, but it's so small that we can ignore it. That is the only legal framework which I know of which basically somehow takes the uncertainty into account. But I'm not a lawyer, so probably there are also other systems which take them into account. So I would like to include somehow statistical confidence into the argument as well, and also perhaps consequences. So if a murderer goes to jail for 20 years, then the confidence has to be quite high. But if it's a traffic violation, maybe a €20 penalty, who cares? But one of the good things about this is the requirement, and at least in GDPR, I don't know if someone knows it, it's also the CCPA, but so we always have to do a data protection impact assessment. So whenever we start a new project or a new way of using data, or have a new algorithm or new method or whatever, new something, we have to do impact assessment. So we have a procedure of going through the ethical consequences of a new technology. There's not, I don't know if the GDPR actually documents how it's supposed to be done. Just do it, basically. We'll have an exercise about that on Friday. I have a framework for that which I found very useful. It's called Data Ethics Decision Aid, which kind of makes list of questions which you're supposed to ask for yourself and with all the stakeholders. So that is, I think, at least eye-opening framework which shows you where it could go wrong. It's of course never complete, but at least a good start. And then based on that impact assessment in the legal frameworks, you have to take different steps depending on what the dangers are. So if it's not dangerous, you don't need to do anything. If it's dangerous, then you have to then take some steps to protect things. So that's in principle a good idea. But just coming back to the unique identifiability, the impact assessment actually demonstrates already that there are different levels of impacts depending on how certain you are and how bad are the consequences. So there are these gray zones involved. And I think I believe here, yes. So this paper, this is the first paper here, Privacy in Speech Technology. It's a review. It has been reviewed in a long time, like almost 2 years now in review. But I have it on archive, but basically everything here was now from that archive paper. I hope it is sometime finished in review. But all that work comes from discussions with a long list of colleagues. I chose to make the paper by myself because it's too many cooks for this soup. I would have never finished the paper. It wouldn't even be in review yet if I would have all of this involved. But I'm very deeply indebted to all of these guys. And probably there are people who might forget from this list. And they are in alphabetical order, so that is not in the order of contribution size. And I would also like to point out this PhD thesis, Francisco Teixeira from Portugal. He defended his thesis last summer, last summer in Europe, so kind of 9 months ago approximately. And all these, all the definitions of privacy come from his thesis. And then this, this background sound, sorry. And then this paper, which I already mentioned before, is evaluating privacy. So that's the perceptual or perception part of this work. Also a very good paper, I students did a good job on that. For some reason I don't have a link for Francisco's thesis, but you can find it on the net. And yes, you will get the slides afterwards. Yes, that's now the kind of this part. There's a big tea break. Is it already time for tea break? Not yet.
4 o'clock.
Sorry, 4 o'clock. Okay, so 1 more hour. Okay, so then you go to the next slide set. Or we take a 5-minute break.
Yes.
A 5-minute break.
Continue. Start on.
ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿರಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡೋಣ. से 1 घंटा 4 बजे ब्रेक खाते हैं तो इस खाली कर
ये लोग चलेगा है इसलिए ये लोग नहीं है ठीक है रहता हूँ तब ठीक है
ಇವತ್ತು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ 15 ನಿಮಿಷ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ.
So regarding the certificates,
ನೀರು ಏನಾದರೂ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟಾಗ
you know what we do about online classes. Everyone will do. D6. Do we send a hard copy or soft copy? First, somebody has to do post office is there. We have to collect addresses. That is not 18. first thing is to leave everything in the validatory session and send them. So that's it. We just need to some of the people who might come, all them come and we can give a vote of that. So it's actually it makes sense. Call everyone one by one. You can call if you want to work. Give us a participation. Seems interesting.
There is no way to say thanks. Yeah. So there are okay. We start to continue here, and there is not. So that I had a separate slide set for this afternoon, but I realized that actually now in my informal discussion I already covered most of my slides for next. But now I start in the middle here. The first part was already covered in the discussion here, so I won't repeat that. But there are a few things here left which are different from what we already discussed. So perhaps we can also, we probably finish with like around tea, we can finish, and then you can work on your assignments after that if you want to. There was a bit of discussion in the break also what do I mean by perception of privacy and subjective experience. Question whether it's more the feeling part or more the kind of knowledge part. Good questions. I haven't thought about that. I need to add them to my list. So at least I learned something new now, and it's fun. But in kind of before this new understanding, I said that how they experience a situation. For example, a noisy cafe can feel very, very private. So even if there are people close by, it's so noisy that anyone close by cannot hear anything. So it feels private, and that's also objectively private because you would have to actually have an eavesdropper very close to get to understand your speech. But if you go to a corridor, let's say here a corridor, it can be reverberation and silent, so then your voice would carry far away, or that's the feeling you can get. So then you couldn't have even if nobody is close or anyone is close, it can feel non-private. So then you would go into an office to talk about private matters. So it's very much the acoustic kind of context or acoustic space has a big influence on how we perceive privacy, and that's not already without devices. So it's not dependent on devices so far, but then now if we embed a device in there, if I have my phone there or an Alexa there, to be able to then communicate about privacy, then the device should know how we feel in that environment. So it should be analyzing the acoustic space to see, does this feel now private to the person in there? So only when it has that analysis, then it can do like educated choices of how to behave in that space. So our assumption is that people do have a cultural experience or cultural norms, how to behave in different acoustic spaces. So basically cultural experience and the risk and consequences. So if the risk is high, so if the likelihood is high that someone is listening, that's different from the consequence being high. So if it's a very private information, even a single person would be dangerous. If it's less private, but there's lots of people around, you can still have high consequences. As evidence, perhaps we could think about that jointly. I think we have some like cultural expressions, like, hey, can we go and talk in private? That's an expression we use commonly in English to express that this place is now not good. You have to move in a different place to talk. Would you have examples of other expressions that we use to communicate about the privacy level? Yeah, well, whatever language.
What language we see? The wall can hear us.
The wall can hear us. Yeah. Yes, that's definitely also in English. I feel like that sounds familiar. We also have this psst. So it's an expression psst. So it's not really a word, but it's still an expression. I think that is different in different cultures. I know that at least Chinese use a completely different approach to that. We don't have any Chinese here, but I can't remember what they do. But they don't say psst. Any other cultural privacy cues? So like psst. That's a correct.
Something that an expression that says that there is no privacy.
Yes, so that says something, an expression which says something about privacy. So communicates something about privacy. Like, can we go and talk in private? That is like a standard utterance and standard utterance.
Hand gestures are expression.
Sorry?
Hand gestures.
Yes. Can you have an example of that? Yes, that is a good example. Jolly Adam. So,
the alternate way.
yes, the other way around also, yes. That's very good. So that is an expression of keep quiet. It can be excessive noise, but it can also be privacy. And this is like something happened, something privacy related happened, and so, oops, now something's going wrong. And here it's good. That's a good example. Let's not talk about that.
And facial expressions.
Ah, yes, facial expressions. Yes, I try to reproduce what you did here. Others?
Sign language. Sign language.
Sign language, yes. So sign language, of course, that's all. The sign language is a language of its own as well, so it can be completely distinct from privacy issues, but it can also be used to communicate privacy matters. But also like something like this, like come here, like, can have a privacy connotation in it. Sorry? You get the microphone. But I can't hear you, and then the people back there can't hear you.
In India, especially in India, we have a peculiar way of communication. That is what is called as a missed call.
So you say microphone here.
We give a missed call whenever we want to pass on some signals. Missed call.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what happens in India.
Okay.
After the mobile phones were introduced in 1990, the call rates were very high. So they had to percolate it to all the sections of the people, and especially people like Harvard, Hubli, and all these people. They know if let's say they have to approve some sale transaction, or they have to approve something that somebody loves somebody. Okay.
Yeah.
Even then, and missed call. And people will be eagerly waiting for that signal.
Okay, yeah. But that is also like also an authorization. Yes. So it has also a security flavor in it. But I think that there's lots of cultural things in that. What you are supposed to say in different places, or what you are not supposed to say in different places.
You also say this pillow talk and all, like some things that is done in private, like private conversation, especially between couples. You say pillow talk.
Pillow talk, yes, yes. That's a good expression also. Pillow talk means that it's a private conversation. Yes. So this all shows that we have a cultural concept of what privacy means. So that's something which needs to be encoded in the user interface. And also, like when the capabilities of the user interface goes beyond the humans, then we need similar concepts, like similar language to talk about the other privacy concerns. Yes. A little more? No? Okay. So let me just showing one work which we have done in this area. So we collected a data set. We call it sound privacy. So we have recordings of volunteers who have conversations in different places. So they have conversations in a cafeteria, or in the office with a closed door or an open door, in a corridor and on the street. So it was our first attempt to collect information about this questionnaire answers afterwards. How private did this now feel? And then we have also evaluations of people hearing those the recordings of those conversations. So to compare whether the audio carries the information of the privacy setting, or when people are in that setting, they can see that the door is open or closed. But does that carry over to the audio signal which we hear, or is it only a visual thing? So we had people hear those conversations and based on that also fill in the same questionnaire. And then we looked at to which extent they match. And there was some interesting observations from that. So I think it's a very early work. Now I would do the kind of whole experimental setup very differently. So it was good work at the time, but not anymore. Kind of what we found out, for example, is that when we are in an office with the silent space, so when we hear only the audio, we cannot see whether the door is open or closed. We can hear how big the room is approximately, but we cannot know if other people are in there. So that the audio does not feel very private, even if the door was closed. But when we are in a cafeteria, where there are noises and there are background noises, we know that there are other people, but those noises mask all the private information. So the certainty of the level increases a lot in the cafeteria. In the office we are uncertain, and therefore we treat it as more exposed. So that then points out challenges for the audio device, that they won't know. Silence is a bad place to be for the device. It will think that it's a public space, even if it will be private. But that was a fun project we had. So really starting entirely new direction of this perception of privacy area. This work is from a different paper. So this is not my work. This is again Anna Zanowski, Birgit Koch, and Nils Peters. Nils Peters, I think it's pronounced. They did the work with chatbots, and then they had an interaction. So I think it was a banking app basically. They had. And then at the end of the conversation, they have different questions. They said that I will save your data for the future interaction now, okay? And then they kind of could answer yes or no. So that gives the control. And then they could have different options on how to approach this. So they could slow down. And then, for example, we have I will send your data for future interactions now, okay? I'll give you 20 seconds to think about it. And then yes or no. So just a time delay added to the previous question. Then they have a question, do you want me to delete your data from this interaction or have it saved for future interactions? That is same content of the version, but phrased differently. And then also, do you want me to delete your data from this interaction now? Same content again, but different way of expressing it. And every time, like they had this yes and no, but the kind of meaning of it is a bit different, whether you should save it or delete it. But anyway. And so what they found like main finding, what I interpret from this, is that the control and slowdown almost always leads to delete. And the alternative and deletion options give mixed results. So this is now not at all talking about So it's just observing how humans behave, not about how they should behave or what does it communicate about privacy. But I think that it is interesting to think about how they communicate about privacy now in these different cases. So why is this slowdown, for example, different from the first question? Why do people feel it differently? Any ideas? So get a microphone over there so I can hear.
In slowdown, the user gets time to think, so he has feeling of control there.
Yes, so they feel more control. But then when they give this more control, they choose to remove it. So why does this now control give them a feeling that it's bad to save? What is?
So you observe that people tended to delete the videos.
Yes. Well, not me, but the researchers here.
Okay.
Perhaps I phrase it differently. What does this framing communicate? Does it communicate now something more?
Kind of deadline, the user feels that he has to, is forced to make a decision in 20 seconds kind of.
Yeah, so time has to do with it, yes. So now you're thinking about
the other side, antagonist feeling.
Yeah.
I don't get to choose how much I can think about it. The system is giving me just 20 seconds. That kind of.
Yeah, so perhaps it could put more pressure. So it kind of feels more dangerous because you're putting more kind of pressure on it. But in the first question, you also you can wait however you want. Or in both questions, you don't need to answer immediately. You are not able to answer. You are forced to wait.
First question was a notion of finality there.
Somewhat authoritarian.
Okay.
The chatbot is taking decisions for itself. Whether if this user fails to respond, also the chatbot will take a decision. And
No. So the chatbot never makes a choice. It makes a question and it waits for your answer.
okay, so if he doesn't answer, it will go on doing what?
No, it won't do anything until you answer. Wait a year and it's still waiting for you. So I do think that the pressure can be a thing that you get locked into a mindset of pressure, even if there actually is no pressure.
And then what future there is also kind of pressurized. Future can be.
Yeah, but my feeling.
Is it because generally there is a fear towards this interaction and then whatever the word mentioned, the fear just focuses on that. You're like, I'm gonna save it. Oh no, yeah, you must save it, don't save it. I'm gonna delete it. Oh no, don't delete it. Like there's generally an underlying fear, and then when something is mentioned, you sort of focus that fear on that.
Yeah, but so now the same thing is mentioned in both sentences. The start is equal. Start is equal in both. It's just adding more time. So you are not allowed to answer too early.
So alternative has both the thing mentioned. Do you want me to delete to say
Yes.
about the
So alternate has a different character. The wording is different. Say out loud.
So in the first two cases, it's like I will do like yeah. So it's like I will do this for you. So we didn't do difference.
Speak more in the microphone. Sorry.
Okay. So in the first two cases, it's like I will do this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it is asserting and then we become more defensive about our data.
Okay, yeah.
Other than the second and the rest two cases are like asking us if we should delete, like we have a choice.
Yeah, that is a good point. So it is that kind of whether it's we or me, or like who you assign the responsibility to is slightly different. And I think they have chosen quite well that it's not really clear where the responsibility lies. But so I think so. What I'm been driving at is that they communicate something about the importance of the question. So I would feel, perhaps it's just me, but I would feel that if I'm given 20 seconds of extra time, that must have a purpose. There must be a reason why I'm giving them 20 seconds of extra time. And such they wouldn't do that lightly. So this must be an important question. And because it's important, I would say no. You can remove everything.
If that's the case, then the first thing should have opposite result, right?
Yes. So that's what. So the first thing. So the. Okay. Yes, that should be. But now both are deleted. So, but I think the delete feels to me more important. They didn't find a big difference there. Perhaps because the control already removed everything. And then is the alternative. So perhaps there the purpose of the data is more clear.
The first one,
no, sorry, no. So that has future interactions. But in the delete is not clear the purpose of the data.
I think I really feel strongly about what she said. I think there's something there because in the first two, control and slow down, the user doesn't feel like the user has any control over it. I'll do this, okay? Like it's just like I've decided what to do and I'm just informing you.
Yes.
Right. So and the other one, like it feels like the user has the power to decide like what it's the person's call.
Yeah.
The first two, it's just merely informing like okay.
Yeah. So now I noticed one error of my own thinking, but yes, that's true. So.
If they replace I will with can I, maybe.
Yeah. So if we would have in the alternative that should I now delete the data, or how it's sort of say, so that would be then would highlight the difference then. But yeah, so I think they didn't get very strong results from this. So they did get some combinations, like those mentioned here below. Those are statistically significantly different. But otherwise, it was a bit mixed results there. I think they would need quite much larger experiment to get more confident results. But at least so that the framing of the question does have an influence. So it does communicate something about privacy level, or it's not privacy level, but it kind of nudges the user to do some choices. And we have to be very careful about nudges, whether they are in an ethical direction. This is the same. So again, we did it. So now this is her former name, Birgit Meyer, but then she went and married, so she's now Birgit Pop. But then a different collaborator, Philip Lalonde. Quite similar setting. But here we had a long interaction. And then the question, the kind of privacy condition and control condition are now, so that here we ask, do you want me to delete your data from this interaction now to protect your privacy? And here is there anything else I can help with you? And then after these two, after the kind of thing finished, they ended with goodbye in both cases. After they finished, they asked how they feel about privacy. And here the kind of outcome was more clear, that giving this option, that you want me to delete your data. Even if they answer no, even if they don't want to delete the data, even in that case, they feel more private than in this case where there is no question. So the end result is the same, but they just feel like they have control. That is quite interesting in my mind. And this is a low stakes environment, so there was no skin in the game. Notice I'm repeating the skin in the game all the time. My favorite word for matters today. So I think the situation could be quite different if you would have an experiment where there is some consequences, or are kind of consequences. But that's the interesting question that, for example, how would you do an experiment with consequences? So privacy violations are ethical breaches. But now you want to do an experiment where people think that their privacy is violated. Or we would need that to evaluate this thing. Can we invent an experimental scenario where we can evaluate privacy violations without being unethical?
Yeah, we can just recreate
If we take microphone again.
If we can just create like a secret for somebody and then create a situation, like it need not be like there are these games like Chinese room arguments and success. Like so if I there is this there's a series Big Bang Theory, and that this is don't like him, but Sheldon he tests his friend whether he can keep secret.
Yeah.
So what he does is he'll just pretend to, oh, I did this, and then he'll see how many of his friends came to know this. So that's something like that.
Yeah, but then it's not. Then it's not your. So you are perpetrating a lie, and but which the other things things that you have skin in the game. So that the one who makes the privacy breach thinks that there's privacy violation, but it's not their own privacy violation.
Yeah, but we need to think about something smart that so we also we do this also, I don't know, most of us, many of us here have done this. So if you want a really good suggestion on something, we just open all our Instagram, Facebook, everything, and we just talk about it. We get suggestions. So, things like that. So something we can just see if our privacy is violated just by, there's something that we can do and the machines can't just pretend.
So the problem with what I have is that always if you do something pretend, then it's automatically a low stakes. So if you do something by pretend, then it's immediately a low stakes scenario. So that there is not a...
For me, right? So let's say three of us are here. Only I know that I am in an experiment. They don't even know.
Yeah.
So in that case, and then I'm saying something like, what should I say? They want to increase the fee. Did you hear that? It affects them also.
Yeah.
So then, but I say, but you can have to keep it a secret. You can't. So then, there can be situations where.
Yeah. So I agree that is an experiment that can be done. There is a slight hint of ethical issues there, but also it's not truly the personal privacy which is. It's not my own privacy which is violated.
The problem with Sheldon is his roommate agreement itself is like. The problem with Sheldon is, when others enter into a roommate agreement with him, see, that's the legal angle, right?
Yeah.
He made sure there are enough loopholes in the agreement to make sure he can intrude on others' privacy as well, and he can scapegoat and do any sort of experiment he wants.
Yeah, but so the loopholes, legal loopholes.
Loopholes.
You can have, but it doesn't make it ethical.
Exactly.
But so this is a fundamental problem in privacy research, so I think the only thing you can do is to have them interviews and talk with people, co-design again. So we cannot really measure it. We have to characterize it by discussions. And then it's about lived experiences that when they have the participants, when they have already had this experience of broken privacy, how did that feel?
Yes, it's a very good point.
So?
How about games, video games, or
Yeah.
something like so?
So video games, yes. So that is one of the things where we could do something, but then so we can have stakes in the game, so you can lose something, or you can also have money rewards for something in a lab setting. If you do things right, then you get money reward. But whether that is the accurate reflection of the real life scenario is a question.
These things it is better to implement at the system level.
Sorry?
Experiments should be done at the system level.
System level, yes.
The system has to take care of this. So the system level, these things can be
tracked very accurately.
Yes, so we can track this. So systems can track these things. But that's a question that whether we can make an experiment in that system which is ethical.
Yeah, if there is any intruder, if there is any breach in the privacy, so the signal strength will fall down. So immediately there must be an alert for the sender.
Yes, so that.
So that the signal strength in the normal conversation, say there is a X amount of signal strength between transmitter and receiver.
Mm-hmm.
If there is any intruder,
yeah.
So there will be a security breach.
Yeah, but that's a security breach,
Yeah,
and then it's connected to a radio link.
Yeah. Signal strength will go down.
Yeah.
So there must be a token or alert to the sender to stop the conversation.
Yeah. But so that's then a security breach happening. Yes, but so I tend to choose to keep security breaches outside my tests because there's a whole community doing security, and security basically applies to any connection you have. So any communication link will have the same security effects, irrespective of what the data goes over there. So it's a much bigger community working with that.
I think the idea of having an experiment for this is absurd. Because you can do experiment and find causes.
Yeah.
But to find reasons, you can't do the same.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So, the basic difference between social science and natural sciences, both are sciences, but one is giving causal explanation, the other is explaining reasons. So I don't think you can actually, there are not, like these are not empirical causes, these are reasons. I don't think you can have experiments to find out the reasons.
Well, so yes, so that's true. We probably cannot find the reasons, but as an engineer, for me, it would be enough to know when people feel violated. So because then I know that the device should not do that.
Yeah, but then there will definitely be a learning curve.
Yeah.
Only by feedback you will probably have that information.
Yeah. So, but that is actually feedback could be actually good approach that we try to make it good first, and then we continuously monitor.
Yeah, but then there is a cost to be paid, right? Like
Yes.
these self-driving cars, like it's having absurd accidents. Like there was this case of, I think it's a truck, like it could detect a person, it could detect a cycle, it could detect a person on the cycle, but if the person is like just pushing the cycle, it can't, and then there is an accident.
Yeah.
So it's absurd like that. So there is a learning curve and then things are at stake. So
Yeah.
is that a viable?
Yeah. So I agree that there needs to be a slow ramp up. So you start with small scale experiments, very controlled settings, where there are no loose variables, and then slowly you add more complex to the situation. And of course, you will make mistakes, definitely. But if we cannot ethically do an experiment where we can test it, well, but this is also not an approach. So then we can't do anything. So I don't think that doing nothing is also not an option.
I don't know in speech this scenario what could be a thing. So in self-driving cars we were discussing about like one thing that you could do is like just introduce the cars on a lane where only self-driving cars are there.
Yeah.
Like just have an exclusive road for and then so like that there must be, I don't know, like I'm not able to conceive how it would be.
But so that's basically also being done. Like some airports have these self-driving trains, and then there's a limited amount of self-driving happening there, and then that has then been expanded to these self-driving cars in California. Now it's a bit larger area. But I don't think that the self-driving cars from California could be brought to Finland because we have sometimes snow on the roads. They wouldn't understand what snow is, or bringing them here would be chaos. So taking it out of context is always dangerous. You have to slowly ramp up the context. Yes.
Also, aren't these?
Yeah, more questions.
So these things are going to be self-learning robots also, right? Like
Yes.
it's not like we have to collect the data. They are collecting their own data and like it's